MIDDLEKAUFF! Hey, hey!
What's up, everybody? Happy New Year and welcome. It is Sunday evening or Sunday night. It is 2023. And
Niners are the 2 seed, bro.
we just watched an incredible football game. You know, John, you can't still spell Stidham without H-A-M.
You know what they say, guy.
What's that?
Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. So, listen, the Raiders, another one where they were right there.
Raiders postgame live with John MIDDLEKAUFF. Moral victories? Do you like them? 888-9 phone number.
Well, listen, guy, if we gave credit for moral victories, the Raiders would be the Patriots of the last 20 years and be a dynasty, right? A ton of moral victories for decades. Not even people think I'm trolling. I'm being serious. A ton of moral victories, playing a lot of tight games. You just end up losing a lot of them,
Yeah, that's true.
Did you hear Sanchez today? He's like, maybe Derek Carr can be like Stafford, get out of a rough place and go on to resurrect his career. Basically called the Raiders the Lions. I mean, Lions fans would be like, we've been in the playoffs 3 times.
Look at the Lions right now. They're the better team.
Agreed.
I mean, Lions are 8-8. They need a little help, but
got a lot of text mid-game from you, from countless people. Are we sure the Niners didn't go out last night? And I'm pretty sure that it's borderline impossible to go out on an NFL road trip.
Yeah, it's
the one nighter. The 2 nights you could pull it off, but
as Reuben Foster once taught us, you bring the party to you.
Oh yeah, she went to his room, huh?
Yeah, you bring, which you can do in Las Vegas or Henderson or wherever.
Where were they? Tampa when Reuben got all popped?
Yeah, I think it was definitely Florida. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think it was the Bucks. I think it was week 1, if I remember correctly. But
John, before we get started, let's welcome and ring in the new year with a glass. You can see I'm holding my Tito's handmade vodka right here in my hand.
Thought you were doing frogs.
I was doing a little froggy frog, horn toters, whatever. And Tito's handmade vodka. It was part of 2022. It is part of 2023. That's right. Tito's handmade vodka in 2023. That's the ticket. Look, we got, you're listening to this, you're watching it live. Monday is a big football day. Huge college and NFL games Monday. So enjoy the new year with some Tito's.
Yep. Huge day. Pour yourself a cocktail. Go to the store right now. Get yourself a bottle. Hell, you probably don't need to go to the store because you probably have it in your bar, in your cabinets. Go pour yourself a cocktail right now. If you're a Raider fan, maybe or 2 or 3, you could use some. It's been a long year. If you're a Niner fan, you now have the 2 seed. Though, people like the Packers. They are right now the 7 seed currently. So that's something to keep an eye on. Be a fun game to go to at Levi's in a couple weeks. Niners, Packers 2-7, assuming the Niners.
God.
Who knows? The 1 seed.
What would be the line on Niners Packers right now?
I'd say 7.
Yeah, at most, I think.
I'd be higher than you think, though.
You think?
I bet it'd be closer to 7 than it would 4.
Hey, John. Well, keep going on Tito's. Then
we'll Tito's. Pour yourself a cocktail. Hopefully, you're not too hungover from New Year's Eve. And if you are, the easiest way to cure a hangover, we all know, pour yourself a cocktail. You feel great immediately. And use Tito's. Tito's and sodas, Tito's and waters. Tito's and basically anything. LaCroix is my go-to. Tito and LaCroix, a nice flavored LaCroix.
Little pamplemousse.
I love a good pamplemousse. Or just even the lemon or the lime one. You don't even need to have the lemon or the lime. You just use that and it's already flavored.
Yeah, Tito's and water with the lemon. That's Tito himself. That's his drink. This is a world-class, award-winning go-to. No frills, but you know what Tito's has struck, John? The perfect balance of it's no bullshit. It's no frills, but it's also classy. It's not. It is the perfect for everybody. You could walk into some dive bar and ask for it. No, people are like, yeah, this guy gets it. You could walk into some, New Year's party at the top of the Fairmont Hotel. They'd be like, yeah, this person gets it. It works in every situation. That's kind of Tito's thing. Is it's perfect anywhere. Like Brock Purdy, it just fits in any situation. Yeah. Conversations about Hall of Famers or conversations about late round picks. It just works in any situation.
Or overcoming a historic recession as a family.
Unbelievable. Sean Purdy, John, the hero.
How about that? I mean, most people, it's like, the one game I threw 3 picks in high school, we lost in the second round, we were the number 1 seed, or, I broke my ankle, had to rehab. Brock Purdy's like, yeah, my family lost everything. It wasn't just like, we went through some rough economic times. He dropped we lost everything, which makes sense. Arizona, I think, was one of the areas hit the hardest in 2008.
For people who don't know what John's referring to, during the broadcast, they asked Laura Oakman, the sideline reporter, said, I talked to Brock about, how he thinks about overcoming adversity. And you think like, being the last pick or whatever. It was like
Saban didn't think he could throw.
I think about when my dad lost his business. We lost our home. We lost everything in 2008, and he never wavered. Like, damn.
I fucking love the Purdy's mindset.
I tweeted, and maybe somebody knows this. I wasn't trying to be funny. I just like, does anybody know what Mr. Purdy does for a living? And the first reply was produce goats.
I mean, clearly just look at him.
Construction.
He looks, I would say, general contractor, kind of that. And it makes sense once Brock says that, right?
Yeah. It makes sense that a general contractor would lose his business in a economic recession in particular.
Housing flips, I could see.
Huh?
I could see like home flips, right?
Yeah.
He buys, he is the general contractor, then he flips. He got a little over his head, and the Purdys have never looked back.
Never look back, John. Just incredible.
How about Cheetos on us, Purdy family, for fucking living the American dream, pulling up your bootstraps and getting back up. Love the Purdys.
Peter on the stream says the refs were ass. All right. Was he a Raider fan or a Niner fan? Peter Lee right there on the stream.
I think the Niners got screwed more than the Raiders had it. I mean, at one point in time, I look up, it was like 9-2 penalties. It's like, oh, Raider, what are they going to say here? What are they going to say here? And I did think if Devontae, they would have overturned that. They would have been like, oh, they're always against us. They're always against us. It's like, well, change your fucking colors, your brand, and just start over, guys.
I told you I think the perfect for the rebrand, purple and orange. I'd go purple and orange on the rebrand. I haven't figured out what the new name would be yet, but purple and orange on the new colors, I think. Kind of Clemson, kind of looks like the Welcome to Las Vegas sign.
I would say, though, that, Mark's WNBA team, which your friend is a star of, that's an excellent name. I do think the Vegas Golden Knights is really good, too. Like, it's hard to do new names, as everyone's been making of the Commanders and football team. Like, they can't figure it out. I would say they got those two right. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I agree. The ace is perfect. So we're watching football team comes on the red zone, and they cut to a guy wearing a hog nose. And Alyssa says, what's that? So I explain it to her, and she's baffled. She goes, wait a second. They had a real mascot that like everyone called them, and they didn't just name their team the Wild Hogs. And I said, it's funny you say that. Wild Hogs actually was one of the name ideas. She was blown. She's like, I don't get it. You're saying for 30 plus years, they had a mascot and a name that everyone called them, and they didn't name the team that? I said, I know. I don't get it. I don't know what to tell you.
The one thing I would say on that, a little hard to do like a Wild Hog visual, right?
I mean, Arkansas Razorbacks, they go by hogs.
You're right, and that works.
Have you seen the new mascot they unveiled today?
It was a pig. It wasn't a pig?
With a big old belly. It's awful. It's so terrible. It's awful.
Well, Tito's, man.
Niners, Raiders. It felt like I texted you during the morning games today and said, I feel like I'm hungover just based off watching the CFP games on Saturday that were so good. The morning NFL games had no juice. Raiders, Niners felt like TCU, Michigan. It had a lot of juice, even without Derek, which we thought, and we talked about this, it kind of took some of the juice out leading up to the game. The game ended up with quite a bit of juice.
Yeah, looking around, I'd say so far, I mean, the game tonight, we'll see. It's a pretty legendary rivalry. Probably the game of the day. The only other game that would be in the mix would be Tampa, Carolina. Just in terms of entertainment value, I actually pretty confident this was the game of the day. Because I watched a lot of New England, Miami, had it on second TV, 23-21. That game was terrible. I mean, the quarterbacks were getting KO'd. Yeah. Teddy was out.
Eagles Saints entertainment. I had that game on. I had that Sunday ticket game on.
It was pretty good, but this game was like legit. Even if we weren't super into it, like all of our chips were in the middle of the table on just being invested in this thing. It was very, very good. The ebb and flow, the classic Raiders blow another double-digit lead. It felt like the Niners were going to lose. Then it felt like they were going to win. And then to have any game that has a game-winning field goal missed and going to overtime is always pretty exhilarating, just separate from knowing, the teams. That's just a moment in the NFL. This was just a high-level entertainment NFL game.
Like TCU, Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia was a really good game. TCU, Michigan had more crazy stuff happening, it felt like. I don't know if you would agree with that.
When you're throwing a lot of picks in a game, though, I guess there were 3 picks in this game, but it felt like, Stidham's came. When you throw picks getting hit, I view that different than like J.J. McCarthy throwing pick sixes and stuff.
I agree, yeah. But I think both are like this. What Niners Raiders had was what did it have? 4 or 5 plays where the ball was 20 feet in the air, just kind of floating for somebody to grab it, right? It happened multiple times.
Well, here's one thing that was cool about TCU Michigan is that I didn't quite realize that the wide receiver that most people think is the number 1 NFL wide receiver, number 1, that guy's going to be the top receiver in this class, and he was excellent. Like part of having a great,
like that.
Yeah, just he looks like Terrell Owens. I mean, he's fucking massive. Is when the best players in the game make sweet plays. Like I thought Josh Jacobs tonight dominated. Devontae was elite. Brandon Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey dominated. Christian McCaffrey, Nick Bosa was all over the quarterback. So like the star players in this game,
Stidham.
Kind of, yeah, fuck it. I mean, you could argue
365 and 3 touchdowns.
Is there a chance he never has a better game the rest of his career?
And 2 picks that weren't really, it wasn't like Stidham made a mistake on either one of his interceptions.
What was his first pick?
Was it Kerry Hyder?
Oh yeah.
To Drake Jackson.
So his picks were not like Derek Carr picks.
Yeah, they were just things happened. Somebody made a play. Yeah, Kerry Hyder PBU. Did Derek Carr watch this game? I wondered that during the game.
I
don't know.
I would guess he would say no. What are you watching at home? You just sit at home?
I could see if I'm in his spot, I could see it's like we're just taking the family somewhere. Like I'm not even home for this today.
Like where are you going?
What are you waiting around? What are you staying for? Hawaii? I don't know.
Oh, you're just saying like
kids are out of school probably right now for a few more days.
Oh, you're talking like you go to Cabo or Hawaii.
Oh yeah, you're thinking. Oh yeah, I guess you could just go on a family.
I was thinking like you just take them to this local zoo. You think everyone's looking at you?
You're just going to go on a hike. Yeah, I don't know.
I could see them all being in Bakersfield right
now. Could go to Bakersfield, but just wild, man. Just
it lived up to the hype. It lived up to. I would say the only thing
I think it exceeded the hype.
You're right. It more than exceeded the hype. Now, part of it, the hype died dramatically when Derek was benched, and when the Raiders sucked. Right. I mean, they're playing the Chiefs. They're 6-11 football team. So part of the hype preseason was this was 2 playoff teams playing. If the Raiders had brought like their end of the bargain to the table, what they were supposed to be, this would have been incredible. It would have been one of the games of the year, right? If the Raiders were a 10-win team and headed toward the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I'll give them credit for showing up, playing hard, and entertaining me. And doing enough to fuck with their fans. Because people, listen, do I troll a little? Of course I do. Because it's fun. But also, it's not really debatable. And I threw this out on Twitter. Like, being a Raider fan is a little bit, I've never done hardcore drugs, but watched a lot of movies about it. Feels like a lot of similarities. The highs are very short-lived, but they are high. And then the lows are long, drawn out, and lead to dark places. I mean, they have no quarterback. The franchise feels like it. They have these moments where it feels like they might win, and then the end result is they end up losing, and you realize they actually don't have anything, right? I mean, it's like what actually got accomplished. And the Niners today played their shittiest game in a while defensively, probably of the year. It's like, oh, they're 12-4, and they play the. I tried not to watch it, but it was on one of the TVs. I mean, the Cardinals are – I don't even know what they're doing right now. They started David
What happened?
Blau.
I didn't watch a second of it.
I think the Falcons beat them 20-19 or 19-18, but it was David Blau.
American Blau
started.
Remember, he's the one whose wife is on like the USA track and field team.
Oh, yeah, you're right. The Cardinals are currently 4-12, so.
I would add one more thing. Great, heavy drug use analogy.
Just for movies.
The story always ends the same.
You do have options in drug use, right?
Reverting
prison or death.
Yeah, reverting to a dark place. It was part of what made the game great too. Was that Stidham was really good. We can get to kind of the Raiders aspect of it, but it did because I texted you at halftime. I'm like, Purdy has 38 yards, and you said, "Yeah, he hasn't been bad." And I said, I know he hasn't been bad. He's got 38 yards. That's a crazy amount for a half of NFL football.
They only had 3 possessions in the first half.
I know, but so did the Raiders. And
no, the Raiders had 4.
They had 4. But still, it's not. I mean, he had more than twice as 38 yards. That's John. Even won 3 possessions. That's like whatever it is, 12 yards of possession, 12.5 yards of possession. Passing.
I would agree, Guy, but that is a pretty abnormal low number. For example,
that's my point. That's all I'm saying.
No, I'm talking about possessions. 3 possessions.
I agree with you.
I'll give you the second half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They had double that more than double that in the second half. Like 3 is a tiny number, and they were 2 of 2 of 3 in terms of scoring, right?
Well, he had like 250 yards passing in the second half.
He threw for 284 yards.
So it worked out, but it's just 38 was a wildly low number. And they were down. And I don't know about you. At halftime, they're down Niners are down 17-14, or the Raiders lead 17-14, depending on how you look at it. And I thought they were going to win the game without much problem at that point in time.
I wouldn't say we're going to win the game without much problem, because one thing Stidham was kind of moving around. They were getting guys open. He was hitting guys.
To get to him. They were struggling to get to him. That's true.
Well, there was that one play in the game. Someone texted me like, "Why did Bosa stop?" And at first you go like, "What was Nick doing?" And then the slow motion, he had got outside a couple times and kept plays alive. Clearly, no one was there, and Bosa had outside contained. I think it was a genius play, because if you see Stidham, like he acted like he was going to go right, and then Bosa kind of stopped before he hit him. You know the play I'm talking about?
Yep. There were multiple plays where Bosa would stop and ran out with either the running back or the tight end who was leaving the backfield too.
I think the Niners
team had a sack.
It felt, well, Crosby was MIA today. At least Bosa in the second half was peppering him.
Bosa created the interception.
One thing I do believe that the Niners got a little lucky is I think Waller, obviously Devontae, major problem. I would have fed Waller the ball too. Like, the Niners are not a good matchup team against a guy like that. Honestly, Devontae is one of the worst guys in the league for the Niners.
Because
he is unstoppable. He eviscerates the Niners. It doesn't matter who's playing corner. It doesn't matter who's playing safety. The one saving grace, obviously the Niners are going to be favored and they're a better team than the Packers, but like removing him is a massive loss for them against the Niners. I fear he is. It's hard to go 6-11 with that guy on your team. I mean, honestly, he's shattering Raider records. He is. For a guy that misses his buddy, he didn't look like he was pouting today, did it?
Well, you honor them by playing with pride.
Professional pride.
7 for 153, 2 touchdowns.
What you tell him? Sit out.
Why don't you stand with your boy or something like that? Ayuk backed it up. What did you think of the reviewed catch by Devontae that went as a catch? Which you and I agreed, like, somehow if the officials had overturned that just because it's the Raiders and the Raiders always feel like they get hosed, it would have felt pretty funny.
I think, and I thought this about the fucked up Michigan touchdown. I think there's a level of play that is just like the eye test tells us. Like, that's a touchdown, that's a catch.
Yeah.
Like, let's just move on.
I think like, I don't know, I'd coin flip 50-50. Devontae might not have caught that, but you couldn't have overturned that.
When the ball doesn't move, it's hard to prove it, right?
It's just so hard. His left arm to tell, was that under the ball, or I think that ball was on the ground, but he did enough that he earned that catch. I thought the fact that he even got to that point was pretty crazy.
Yeah. You agree on the Michigan? They got the right call?
I don't think they should have overturned that play. I do think that it's likely that he was down when he was like kind of on his butt, and his butt was a little in the end zone, and the ball had not crossed the plane, but I just didn't see a good angle that would tell me that. So I would.
But he didn't have possession right away. It kind of bounced into.
Yeah,
him,
I know. I think it's possible that he was not in the end zone, but I don't see how you could overturn that on the Michigan one. But
yeah, I thought today, for the most part, the one female ref that fucking Kyle wanted to kill, George just slammed the guy. It's like, what are we doing? That was
one arm.
That was a bad call.
You could tell, like, she started to say they cut her away. She goes, I thought, and then they cut away. You could like read her lips.
Yeah.
His Kyle was just screaming.
Not a good.
Like
Trent had a rough series. Trent had a series where he had 2 penalties.
Yeah. Well, one was that, and Sanchez said it, like the false start from your own half-yard line. Who cares? Right.
Yeah.
But then he had a holding on that one too.
Purdy got lucky on
That should have been that one. Yeah.
Automatic safety if you throw
intentional grounding from the end zone.
Yeah.
I guess you could argue there was a receiver in the area. Maybe that's what they were saying. Because they didn't even talk about it. He was not out of the tackle box though.
No.
Now he threw it. His arm strength on that throwaway was pretty good.
He's got good arm strength on throwaways, doesn't he?
He does.
His juke on the one throwaway was sweet. He's had some remarkable throwaways this year. Remarkable.
Yeah.
He is. We'll dive into him later, but it's not really arguable. He is the best pure passer. Colin had the strongest arm. Jimmy had like the most success as a player, but pure passer, I think since like we were in high school, Jeff Garcia slinging around, where it's just the eye test of just throwing the balls.
Yeah.
Again, Colin could make plays that no Niners ever made. Steve Young and Joe Montana are the best quarterbacks they've ever had.
Trey,
I mean, I can't. I have zero judgment. I mean,
highest draft pick they've had
highest draft pick they've ever had
since Alex Smith.
Since Alex Smith, in 15 years. This guy is the best passer they've had in 20 years. Like
He's
just passing
playing
the ball.
quarterback. Yeah.
And you know who knows that? The coach. The way he calls the plays. He calls plays dramatically different with Purdy than he does.
Yeah,
Jimmy, does he not?
Let's talk about that. Well, let's talk about actually before we talk about that part of Purdy, let's just talk about Purdy in a clutch game. As I tweeted during the game when Raider fans I got a lot of tweets. They were like, pretty quiet over there. And I said, look, Montana can't lead a comeback if he never trails. And after that fine first half, it wasn't being critical, 38 yards passing, whatever. That was just the nature of the game. He was 7 of 10 for 2 touchdowns in the first half. Looked good. Stidham was 11 of 14, 145, 2 touchdowns in the first half. Brock finished 22 of 35, 284, 2 touchdowns, and just had a lot of clutch downfield throws in the game. Had moments. The screen at the end to McCaffrey, not at the end, before the Robbie Golden, that actually at the end. The screen to McCaffrey with a free blitzer coming right up the gut was while the throw in and of itself is, no one would call it remarkable.
That was to take the lead, that drive.
That was to take the lead.
27-27. That one takes the lead. His final drive. Now, the first play of that final drive, he gets the ball back.
Regulation. Gotcha.
111 back, 34-34. It's like,
right.
Okay, this is win or lose. Niners are in the playoffs. Let's just see this kid sling it. First play of that drive, almost picked. Clearly, little miscommunication. Ayuk first down. CMC dropped. It was a dime. Ayuk first down. So rattled off 4 straight passes, first downs. Now, on that final bailout Ayuk catch that ended up leading to the missed field goal, anytime you get throttled, that's why I'm not going to talk shit about Stidham's final pick. Like, you get throttled, that happens to Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. But I thought I am in complete confidence of this guy in passing situations. I really am. And I'm going to live with the picks. Like, he's now at 4 straight games or whatever where he is just a calm guy throwing the ball. I would say the same thing if Stidham had 4 more games like that. Like, there is a calmness in a player that is just pretty easy to see with the eye test. Now, to do it one game, you couldn't anoint him. To do it a couple, it was cool to get excited. We have a body of work now. He's pretty fucking good. I mean, he just is. Does he have great physical skills? Is his ceiling high in terms of like Josh Allen type plays? Of course not. But he's pretty damn good. And he's pretty damn calm. And he's pretty confident throwing. Ultimately, the 49ers are not Andy Reid. They're not going to throw go routes, even when they have a guy that they feel comfortable. Hell, Trey Lance has a big arm and they didn't throw him. Kyle does not call that play. But he will call passing plays if he believes in the quarterback. He did not believe in Trey Lance. He did not as a passer. Jimmy, for the most part, he was hesitant to. This guy, it's dramatically different than you watch the other 2 guys, his play calling, isn't it? Like, they just it'll be first down. Like, is he just 5 wide, letting this kid sling it? Like, throughout the game. Down 7, tie game, down 3.
Well, he doesn't get spooked also.
But I'm saying the coach treats this guy.
No, I'm saying Kyle doesn't get spooked if Brock does something risky. Feels like with Jimmy, Kyle would get a little spooked. If Jimmy did something risky, Kyle would curl up kind of offensively.
Yeah.
He doesn't. He has as much. He has more confidence. I think he has more confidence in Brock. He certainly calls a game like that. Now, there are just times when you have to throw the ball down the field, but it feels like, and we've talked about the fact that they throw less passes behind the line of scrimmage with Brock than they did with Jimmy. And they complete more balls from 10 to 19 yards with Brock than they did with Jimmy. And, if 18-yard kind of air yard throws are your most explosive plays, you can have a pretty explosive offense. It doesn't have to be 45-yard Devontae Adams over-the-top sideline throws. You'd like them, but they scheme up enough kind of downfield open throws for Kittle every once in a while for one of the other tight ends or Juice that if 18 yards are your most explosive air yard plays, that is more than you can get down the field really quickly if you're hitting 15, 16, 17, 18-yard throws, which consistently hitting those throws is what the 49ers have lacked.
Well, the touchdown, it would have been the touchdown in the second half when they were down 10 points. to Kittle when he kind of did the rollout and he rolls to the left and he hits him in the back of the end zone?
Yeah, probably throwing to Ray.
No, I think to me it's pretty clear that he was throwing. That was
one of Ray's last week.
That was a really, really impressive play. Like, that was high level shit. So when and sometimes I got to catch myself when I say a ceiling, that's a pretty high ceiling NFL play, right?
It's perfect.
Yeah.
In traffic, into the end zone, you got to drop it over guys, but leave it low enough for Kittle to go get it. Are some calling it Joe Montana to Dwight Clark? No, I wouldn't call it that, but it's a similar, just there's only one place to put that ball. Kind of like the fade. Stidham's touchdown to Devontae on that fade. Like, there's only one place to put that ball, but it's easier said than done. He cut the ball loose downfield to Kittle a couple times. That interception where Sanchez as the analyst a couple times, not a couple times, a lot, because he can see more than we can see. We'll start reacting to a play before you know what's happening. And on the interception that he threw, Sanchez started going, whoa. And you thought, well, it's Kittle wide. Oh, somebody is wide open down the field. Then you watch the ball get cut loose, and you don't see it a lot. Maybe that's a play where you see Brock's arm strength show up a little bit on that interception because it was underthrown. But it's also Shanahan. If I would have one kind of question for Shanahan during post-game film study, I'd say, Kyle, why are all of these play action rollouts to Brock's blind side, to Brock's left? It just takes him more time to set up and throw when he rolls that way. Now he had time to set up and throw, but it happened at the end of the game a couple of times where he would turn that corner to open up to his left, and there was somebody there that he didn't know was there.
I think it's based on the previous plays. Like, everything is off the run plays, and I think it's the previous looks. Like, that's just the way the offense works. I don't think
it's a lot more rollout lefts to his blind side where it takes more time to set up than rolls to his right, where you can just get more body into the throw, I think.
I also think there's part of it with this offense, especially as you get closer to the playoffs, is setting up the looks. So the looks you want to do. I'm not trying to act like he's Albert Einstein here, but there's just setting up plays. So I have, the full arsenal in a playoff game. Now the difference is like, what really is the difference between a playoff game and a regular season game? Obviously, there's a lot more on the line, but in terms of, it's not like you get 20 days to prepare, right? You don't have any more time to get ready for a normal game. But I do think he's just probably trying to get more looks on tape with Brock Purdy and also just keep feeling out what he's good at, what he's not good at. I mean, this is the quarterback of the future.
It is. I mean, it's not even funny at this point, right?
No, he's the other quarterback. I quoted Rap Sheet's tweet. I have my Twitter back, by the way. And
saw that. Congratulations.
Rap Sheet said that he's got a second surgery. And I just quoted it, said, yikes.
Trey Lance.
And everyone's like, Middlekauff, what are you talking about? It's like, did you guys read the story? This is not the reason he's having surgery is because he's having issues. It wasn't, this was scheduled all the way. No, he's been having pain. He's been on crutches and they had to do this. So there's no way around it that it's a yikes. It doesn't mean his career's over, but this surgery was not normal. Now, regardless of this surgery or not, Brock Purdy keep doing this. He's gonna go into the offseason as the starter. I mean, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. But just because there's so much of this season that's important. But I don't see how you can argue that at this point. Can you?
No. It is inarguable at this point.
Now, Trey Lance is still on the team. I'm not saying he's the backup.
But for Trey Lance to be the starting quarterback, they would have to believe that what Brock Purdy is doing right now, Trey Lance can do better. And at this point, I mean, there's not a lot of guys that can do it better than Brock Purdy's doing it right now. Now, careers are made over a career, not over a month and a half. But, again, how could you argue Trey Lance could do it better than Brock at this point? Not that this is a whole Trey Lance thing, but because it'd be hard. Most quarterbacks in the league are not playing as well as Brock Purdy is playing right now. Is that fair to say? He's playing better than most quarterbacks play right now.
Of the 32 guys, yeah.
Yeah, just most, like he is playing, let's just say average is the middle. He is playing above average quarterback.
Yes.
So
100%.
Like guys like that don't get replaced.
Now today, a couple times, like he could have, there were some balls that could have been intercepted that were not.
Sure.
And I thought today was probably the most, quote unquote, the PFF interceptable balls or balls that could have been intercepted that, there's probably a play if you're playing the Giants or that's a Packer defender that probably sticks to their hands, right?
Who was the guy that had a ball stick to his hands today? Did you see that clip?
No.
The Texan defender? His glove. He took the glove off and it was still stuck to the ball. Everyone's like, investigation?
I guess if you're the Texans, no one actually cares.
But I saw now this. I won't even say what I saw Mahomes do today. It doesn't matter. It's not worth bringing up Mahomes and compare. I'm not comparing him, but guys throw picks. Guys make bad plays. It's okay.
Well, exactly. You could live with this. Is what we always said about like why you went from Trey Lance, the potential from Jimmy. Well, give me like 4 touchdowns instead of 2, and I can live with a pick or 2. Give me 3+ touchdowns every week. Purdy's doing that. I know he only had 2, but they're explosive offensively. And what happens when they're explosive offensively? It opens up the run game. I mean, it just feels like much more of a balanced operation. And guess what? They're missing the fucking all-pro, who when you add him back to the mix, it almost feels like they got too many guys. And honestly, today, there were just moments where it's like, Danny Gray made a play. Ray made a play. The Ray play was actually pretty sweet. The little screen they said, like this guy just feels very comfortable running what Kyle Shanahan wants him to run.
That's a good point. The Ray thing is like, Debo's not been available. Debo's not available, right? Has not been available for a few weeks, and it has
on game day. He's avoided all-time NBA freak out. Thank God.
It was, but they really haven't skipped a beat offensively. And, in a weird way, I don't know. You would say it's opened it up for other people, but Ayuk has definitely, we can talk about Brandon. He's definitely stepped into that. McCaffrey's done a lot. Kittle has kind of blown up.
Skipped a beat guy, 35, 37, 37, 3 of the 4 last weeks. I mean, they are scoring points. This was a team that was like, it's got to win 23-17. I mean, 30, Tampa, 30, Dolphins, 33. Tampa, 35. Seattle, whatever, kind of ugly on the road, short week, 21-13. 37-20, 37-34.
Well, so this is the Niners' first game in which they've scored a ton of points, and it's been close, right?
Yes.
Which we talked about the other day. They haven't really done. They've scored a lot of points in blowouts against teams laying down, but they haven't played a game like this yet.
Beside the Chiefs game, this was easily the most points they've ever. I guess they gave up 28 to Falcons. So,
I saw one of the
post-Chiefs game. I guess they haven't lost, right? What are they on, a 8-game win streak? 9-game win streak now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They've won 9 straight games, guy. Like, honestly, if they had lost today, which it felt, and there were moments when they could have lost. I mean, it was like they could lose this game. I felt pretty good because it was like Purdy's playing well.
Yeah.
It's the thing that was going to rattle you the most is like, Purdy threw a 6-pick game, or you just had that moment like, oh my God. It hasn't even remotely come close to happening. And okay, the defense has a shitty week. Like, whatever. Like, you're allowed to have Peyton Manning didn't have a perfect game 17 weeks a season, right? Tiger Woods shoots over par every once in a while in his prime. Now, you and I have been saying like this defense probably a little overhyped in terms of like relative to all-time defenses, but like you're allowed a bad game.
Yeah.
Playing an uncommon opponent.
Weird quarterback switch, that type of thing. So 22 of 35, 284, 2 touchdowns, a pick. I thought the experience for Brock just being in a game like this, there was a value in that. Like you said, the loss wasn't going to kill him in terms of the big picture making the playoffs. It would have eliminated, any hopes of the 1 seed and maybe the 2 seed because Minnesota plays the Bears next week. But I wouldn't put anything past Minnesota, although I don't know if Fields will be playing quarterback for the Bears next week. But it was, I thought, a really road environment, if you want to call it that, useful experience for Brock Purdy. And Brock might say, guys, I've been in games like that before, so it really didn't make a difference to me. But it made me at least more comfortable with him, watching him in a game in which they trailed. I think Dubow answered the stat. Niners are now 2-33 under Kyle Shanahan when they're losing by double digits in the second half. The only other time they won a game when trailing by double digits in the second half under Kyle is last year's Week 18 game against the Rams. I saw one of the beat writers, maybe it was Barrows, say it kind of felt like the Saints. Remember the Niners Saints game in 2019? That shootout after the Ravens loss, where Jimmy was probably Jimmy's best career game. That it kind of just felt like that in the building there today. But for me, what I really valued was watching Brock in a game where they trail. Just every throw was going to matter. Every decision was going to matter. You know, taking a sack was going to kill you, all that type of stuff. And he was great. I think he was great. And I'm using great maybe a little loosely, but like he really passed that. He had a test today that we hadn't seen him take yet, and he really passed it.
Greatest run for Mr. Relevant player in the history of the league.
Low bar, but yeah.
Bar's low, but he's exceeding expectations. And honestly, for the Purdy family, ever since probably 2009, it's been trending upward, right? He's just carrying on that tradition. Just keep trending.
What was your? Let's talk about the favorite Brock Purdy plays from the day. The touchdown to Kittle, number one.
Touchdown to Kittle. I do think his throwaways. I mean, I would say this under Jimmy Garoppolo, when we talked about him and thought they had a Super Bowl level team with him, looking back, like it would have been very difficult because he can't avoid the sacks that Purdy can. Purdy is avoiding sacks because from a scouting perspective, his instincts, like one thing I think like Carr, for example, gets knocked on, doesn't have great instincts when guys are close to him anymore. And I would say Jimmy is very hit or miss with this. And part of it is like Tom Brady can have good instincts, but he can't move, whatever. This guy can move. And that double juke he had on the blitzing Raider off the edge to his left side, even Sanchez was like, damn, that was remarkable. And that's a big difference of like losing.
You're talking about on the throwaway, that play?
I'm talking on the throwaway. I'm talking losing 8 yards or just going back to, instead, it's 1st and 10. You're just 2nd and 10 and 2nd and 18. Then all of a sudden you get a slant, you get a first down. It's like, boom. Usually that play led to a sack from Jimmy Garoppolo and then to a 3 and out, right? Because it was 2nd and 18, then he ran it, and then he just like ran a slant, okay, 5 yards. So his ability to extend plays and just neutral, like not even gain anything, right? Just throw the ball away. Wasn't that the knock on Jimmy? He didn't throw the football away. He had like 3 in his career.
The 3 this year.
So and to me, some of those. How about the dimes on the minute drive at the end of the game?
Yeah,
he's hitting him in stride. Like it also is a reflection of Jimmy Garoppolo's. Jimmy not very accurate. He's high, low. This guy is fucking right in the breadbasket. And a couple times Raider defenders were draped all over Ayuk, and he's just. Even Sanchez was like, "This is like bread and butter Montana rice." That slant play. I'm not saying those two guys, but the slant is the bread and butter of the West Coast offense. Even though Shanahan's like this kind of morphed offense now, but you know what I'm saying? Like, if you can run the slant, Kyle's running a shitload of slants today.
He had 2 huge. He had 2 huge throws. Jennings had 2 big catches. He had the one after the Kittle hold, and they had one after the Burford penalty. Remember, Burford sprinted downfield on that McCaffrey screen like he was he was running a route. Like Burford, why don't you run a slant on this play? Burford was gone.
Burford was like, Forster's going to love this so much. I'm going to deplete a DB.
So both of those plays to Jennings.
Guy, how about there was a throw in the second half to Jennings down the sideline, hit him in the hands. Now that it kind of got broken up, but that was a dime.
It was a dime. That was going to be a really tough catch, but that was a dime. But
can't you live with like the 50-50 plays that are incompletions? You're like, that was a good, productive throw.
Give my guy a chance. It felt like a lot of times downfield, Garoppolo didn't give guys chances.
No.
Like I said earlier, I thought the second down at midfield that McCaffrey went for 38 yards to set up the go-ahead score when he has an unblocked blitzer coming right up the gut, and he gets it to Christian. McCaffrey waits and waits and waits for Brunskill, who comes over with this diving block and then tucks his legs so he doesn't trip McCaffrey, and then McCaffrey takes off. I just thought that was like no freak out. He knew him. And I think that goes back to what you were saying about his feel. Like, he does have just really good feel. And I think you wonder, with a rookie who has good feel in college, when the game speeds up in the NFL, will his feel translate? And Purdy's feel translates. That's, I think when you watch basketball, you can see that really quickly, like with a rookie. Basketball, it's really obvious. Like, does the guy have a feel? Is he in the right place? Is the ball moving when he touches it? Does he know what to do with it? Does he help on defense? You can see it really quickly in hoops. And you see it really quickly with Brock. Like, when there is pressure, does he know exactly how much time he has to not panic? And he doesn't.
Well,
He
don't you
does
think
not panic under pressure, like literally under a guy running at him pressure.
one thing you see in the Final Four with the college guys, TCU doesn't have that many 5-stars, but the other programs have high-level guys that are just like pretty natural players.
Yeah.
But you do college games, and if you watch a lot of college games where you see guys like, this guy should be pretty talented, but he's just like, something's missing. I bet you see it a lot when you call college basketball games. Like, this guy's 6'9", he's fucking shredded. It's like, I don't think the guy knows what he's doing out there.
I can't tell you how many sophomores I've talked to a basketball coach about, like, how's John doing? He's like, well, he's like 6'8", 235. Like, well, he's, just trying to, he doesn't really have the feel yet. It's just, I think it's so hard in basketball to like get that. And if you don't have it by the time you're through your freshman year, like, you're probably not getting it.
And what's crazy about the NFL, is the draft is a process of like balancing upside on guys like a Kittle, right? On a Fred Warner, guys that have the measurables that just for whatever reason you can get in the 3rd or the 4th or the 5th round and then can become high-end players, and taking like, this guy's really got some instincts. Because if Purdy was Nick Foles' size, like we said, he would have gotten in the 1st round. People loved him, and he produced at the highest level, but he's tiny. But you watch him, you go, this guy just has it, right? He just has it. Like Steve Kerr, the type guys he loves just have it, right? Now, a lot of people are like, well, he just doesn't like the talented guys. He just wants guys that are good. That like, yeah, they might have a lower floor, or a lower ceiling, but they can just operate.
Well, that's the thing.
And this guy, in a weird way, is kind of breaking through that ceiling of like, well, we acted like he's just this high floor guy. He's actually probably somewhere closer in the middle of like, he breaks through that floor. We have to acknowledge, like, he does not have the physical attributes of Mahomes, Herbert, or Allen, obviously. But he's fucking, if Kirk Cousins and some of these guys, like Dak Prescott, doesn't have a great arm. Now, Dak's bigger, but I watched Dak on Thursday Night Football throw a pick right in the fucking guy's breadbasket. Like and look, they've put good teams around him and they win 12 games every year, right? And the difference is, like, imagine if Dak was Kyle's quarterback. Kyle would feel great about it. Like, part of like the Niners having Purdy just play like that, if he can get into that group of what Cousins and Dak, kind of hold down that 9 to 11 group. Well, if you have a high-end coach and a good roster, like, you can make hay. The reason the Cowboys lost in the playoffs is because they're coaching their operation, right? Their talent with the Niners, it didn't look like that big of a gap, right? It was like they were going off sides every play, and fucking McCarthy's chewing on a pencil.
Couldn't manage the clock at the end of the game.
No, Dax was a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo. So the point, and this is, listen, would you rather have the top 5 quarterbacks? Of course, but that's just not an option. And the Niners tried, and now the guy's getting a second surgery in 6 months. Shit, less than that, right? I mean, when did he get hurt? Middle of September? This is what they got. He's fucking damn impressive. And their coach who's the offensive coordinator, loves him. And when I'm saying love, like, just watch like the way he calls plays.
Well, also their star players are producing with him, which I think is just, when you are a new quarterback, it's a really simple. You remember the story? Was it a Niners practice? Ayuk, like, or was it after? I think it was a practice after the week in which Purdy came in for Jimmy. There was a play in practice where you know what it was? It was Ayuk didn't get the ball a lot, or something like that, right? Ayuk missed him. He missed Ayuk on a play, or maybe he missed him in practice. The story was Ayuk telling the story. Purdy came right up to me. He's like, "Man, I'm going to get you. Don't worry. Like, I got you." Right. And I don't know if you heard today during the broadcast, there was some play in practice where Stidham came up to Devontae, was like, I'll get you next time. I got you. And Devontae was like, don't worry about it, man. You don't have to be perfect. Just put it up there for me. My point is, like, all these quarterbacks, I think, are very cognizant of getting the ball to the star player, because the star player, like, wants the ball and will be mad at you if he doesn't get the ball. Well, all the star players, now part of this is just Kyle's able to manipulate the offense with short throws to get guys the ball. But if you have stars on your team, the number one requirement for the quarterback is just get the guy the ball. That's it. Just get the guy the ball. Don't give away possessions and get the guy the ball.
Well,
How's he
listen,
doing that?
he's a fun story, and I root for him when he plays, and I root for this team, besides when they play the Niners, just because I know a lot of people there. There is a massive drop-off between Minshew and him and just his ability to get the ball to those two guys.
Wait, are you saying if the Niners play the Eagles?
I'm rooting for the Niners.
Oh,
Sorry-
okay. I
sorry,
thought you said
Philly.
you're rooting for the Eagles. Okay.
No, I'm saying if every other game they play, I'd root for them. I want them to do well.
Right.
But
Eagles ain't sending a paycheck anymore.
no, fuck that. But I enjoy watching them. Like they're a star-studded team like the Niners. There is a massive drop-off on their ability to like function with their offensive stars. Because like the Niners, AJ Brown, who did hit a big play today, Devontae, stud, Miles Sanders, Goddard, like they are locked and loaded. But the drop-off is precipitous, right? With Jalen and Gardner. And I think it's pretty clear. Like Gardner's a solid backup. Like he's going to play in the league for a while. Purdy is feeding these guys. Now, part of it is the offense. And yeah, I mean, a huge part of it is the offense, but that's the offense. That's what Kyle's always said. It's like, Middlekauff, you and everyone else on the internet thinks I need this fucking star quarterback. My offense, if you just can play at a relatively high level, we're going to score points. We're going to score points. And today they scored fucking points with ease. Now, the Raiders defense sucks, but like we said, it was the previous 4 of the last 5 weeks. They just score touchdowns. They feel potent. You know, that's the first half of the season. They did not feel potent. They were winning games or competitive in games, but they weren't potent. They feel potent now. Honestly, the Raiders at any moment kind of feel potent because like they might just go deep to Waller or Devontae, right?
Right.
The Niners never felt like that with old James Garoppolo.
I think the other thing, you know, when you look back at Minshew, remember like the early Minshew magic in Jacksonville, the one thing that Minshew does that Brock at least has not done is he throws picks. He did it today. He threw it back.
Like I said, he did have some drop today.
Would you count that last one a drop? Where he was
No,
trying
but
to hit Ayuk
there was
over
one in
the
the end zone that the guy was sitting right there. And you did tweet, you did text me that, you know, they shouldn't be allowed to wear black because of the black end zone you can't see.
I do think it's an unfair advantage for the Raiders to wear black at home when they play the black jersey in the black end zone.
Like Boise, blue on blue.
Yeah, shouldn't be allowed to wear blue on blue.
But you know, the end zone play, like in the playoffs.
I mean, that's how Chandler Jones, you know, picked off whatever his name on the Patriots.
Oh yeah, that Jacoby thought he was because he was laying down at first.
He was in the black, wearing black in the look. I mean, I just unfair advantage. I wish the league. I think the competition committee should look at it.
Are you trying to diminish a top 3 Raider moment in the last 20 years since the internet started? That's fucked up, man. That's fucked up. Top 3 moment.
Look, I'm Raider guy, John, so I can say those things.
True.
You know, I acknowledge. I think we have a
could argue last 20 years their top moment was last year beating Herbert in the you know week 18 or whatever. Chandler Jones number 2.
Yeah, it might be. I mean, it was just you know, signing Josh McDaniels feels like that was pretty high.
Yeah, it's going well.
That was a big moment. Getting the stadium in Vegas in your face, in my face, that was a big moment.
I give Jerry credit on that.
Ryan on the stream says, is Josh McDaniels or Nate Hackett going to drink more Tito's by themselves this offseason? Minus 150, it's Nate. No clue if my first super went through. Super chat. How'd Jerry Rosenberg almost pulled it off today. Broncos Chiefs.
I looked over one time. I had them on like one of the 3 screens, and he was walking so fast down the sideline. I was thinking, like, what? This is crazy.
Did he have a headset on?
He had a headset on, yeah.
Okay.
Now, part of it was, you know, their defensive coordinator, who's also a UC Davis guy, who's obviously really good. And to me, who's got, if I'm Kyle, I'm sniffing around on him to replace D'Amico. If D'Amico goes,
dreams of sushi.
Yeah, I that guy's good. He turned it down. Now, I think Nathaniel Hackett is his best friend since college, so it might be principal. But you do get they do give you a prorated interim. You know, if you're making $2 million as the D coordinator, you get the prorated double rate. I mean, that's not nothing.
Maybe just doing what was right for the team. He knows his stock is as high as it could be. I'm not going to come out here and start mismanaging timeouts when I'm not prepared.
That's true. Yeah. Why do I want to diminish any of my shine?
Yeah. I'm just going to be over here coaching D. I don't want to have to talk to Russ.
Yeah. Russ started crying today. You see that?
No.
Crying would be strong. He got emotional.
Yeah.
The guy's supporting him on social.
Oh, yeah. I did see a lot. Garrett Bowles.
Judy and Sutton.
Yeah.
And Their offensive lineman also got in a fight with the backup quarterback last week because he didn't pick him up. So it's Twitter's. There are a lot of people in society that drive right by the homeless guy on the side and then get home and tweet like, "Oh my God, I love poor people." It's like it's pretty easy to tweet.
There's only so much you can do. All right.
It's very hollow. It's very hollow.
Brandon Ayuk today, not hollow. 9 catches, 101 yards, a touchdown. One of his catches was also not a pick. So I give him extra credit for that. His last catch when the ball was fluttering in the air. He came over and made a play on it. And just was everywhere. I mean, felt like a primetime player, war daddy, PT peer. The numbers weren't as big, but it kind of felt like in a weird way he was going toe-to-toe with Devontae. And he was just there. He was there every time it felt like the Niners needed him outside of, that stumble, drop, whatever. I give him a little slack on that. It was if you look back, like it's one of his biggest games just statistically of his career. And it was one of the most important for sure.
If you've watched him play all season, and most people listening have, like the way he carries himself like every single game. I'm going 10 for 120. And he runs routes. He gets open. You see the NFL tweeted Instagram something out of his routes, and all the guys were like reposting it of him just getting open all season long. And the thing I respect most about Devontae Adams is he doesn't say much. He doesn't feel like he's barking at the other team, or he's like the opposite of like a Jalen Ramsey, some of the Terrell Owens over the years. Like, and it's easy to get in that when you're on the outside, right? He just fucking dominates. I do think Ayuk, and there's a toughness to Devontae. He doesn't talk about it. You just feel like this guy's tough. Ayuk has the same kind of mannerisms. Like, I want to go to war with this fucking guy. Like, I want to go to war with Devontae Adams. I want to go to war with Brandon Ayuk. Now, obviously, Adams has done it a lot longer, but I don't see how you watch Ayuk and his stats in a passing league are not going to be comparable to probably the top 15 guys in the league, but he is. I don't think there are 15 wide receivers the 49ers would trade him for, right?
I agree. I mean, his 9 catches, just looking at his history, his 9 catches ties the second most catches he's had in a game in his career. And the 101 receiving yards is 4th most he's had in his career. 3 of his 4 most productive games in terms of yards have come on the road. At New England, a blowout back in 2020. Well, actually, this Raider game now is up here. It says 107 yards. So there's some discrepancy. This actually has it as his 3rd biggest game. One stat says 101. This thing says 107, but it's one of the biggest games of his career.
I was watching, I had the Patriot game on the volume earlier today, and I think it was Charles Davis and Ian Eagle. And Charles, like, one thing Belichick was saying is that he thinks this year is Tyreek's best season. And he's like, he didn't want to act like he's any different than Kansas City. He said the difference is this year, and it's part of the offense, is Andy, obviously, they're so big on going deep, right? And like deep crossers and shit. Was in McDaniel's offense, they run a lot of slants. They just get the ball to him really quick, right? On a quick hitter, like Kyle does. And Belichick was basically telling him, like, he showed a lot of toughness. And if you watch Tyreek, like, he is not scared. And to me, a toughness element of running slants, like, obviously you're not going to, Steve Atwater and John Lynch aren't going to take your block off. Still, the physicality of that position, it's not that physical on the outside when you're just one-on-one going up for a ball relative to the game, right? But when you're in a slant position and there are other linebackers there, there's a fearlessness to this guy that obviously Tyreek has, Devontae has, like, that a lot of the great guys have. And you got to have it to be a complete receiver because he can go outside and get open, run routes. But, like, he made his hay today, especially when it mattered, going over the middle of the field. Like, you guys probably know I'm going to run a slant here. Like, and you ain't going to be able to cover me. Again, he's not playing, I'm trying to think of the great Raider corners, Namdi or Charles, but
Rod Woodson.
Yeah, I mean, he's been like, I think top to, I don't think he's looked any different today than he has on some of his 2-catch games.
Yeah,
he comes to play, and it really started in the offseason when he fucking fought Fred. This guy was on a mission to, like, prove he's an alpha on the squad. Like, he's a team captain next year, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends how many spots Kyle has to go to give a seat to Trey. 12 guys have received a captainship this year.
Remember, Trey didn't get one.
Oh no, it was because he cut it off at 8. What was the deal?
Yeah, he's like, cut it off at 8. Easily could have been 9. He had a lot of votes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great point. He actually has more games where you feel him more than the box score, where it's like, man, Ayuk was not everywhere, but Ayuk had a big impact, and you look and it's like 4 catches for 75. But he is an all business guy. It's why his tweet last week or his Instagram post at Devontae, like, go stand with your boy, was kind of even that felt out of character. But he just feels like he's in a very good place. And I think the thing you would say about him and Devontae, whatever tiers you want to put him on, and it's hard to find exactly where Brandon's spot is, they really help their quarterbacks, right? Like Brandon Ayuk makes his quarterback better. And I think having a guy that you can trust over the middle to get open, that's what made it a little dicey sometimes with Jimmy, is you still had to make the throw, not airmail the ball. And him and Purdy are locked in together. Purdy hits him in stride all the time so far.
Listen, a lot of people, Devontae's got made fun of a lot on the internet, right, for leaving to go to this shit show. And rightfully so. Like, he chose. Historically with the Raiders, when that guy goes there, they become irrelevant. They suck. He's got 95 catches, 1,500 yards, 14 touchdowns. Like, Devontae hasn't derailed his Hall of Fame chances. He's gone to a place where his best friend got benched. The franchise was in shambles. And you know what? I think he's earned, like, listen, did he make a bad decision? Yes, but he hasn't flinched. It's like, hey, motherfuckers, throw me the pill. Remember, it was like,
he made a bad decision for winning. It hasn't affected his, like you said, his production at all. It's made him in a weird way.
Was it you or Pat Hill that told the story of Jim McElwain's when he went to coach with the Raiders and he'd call routes for Randy Moss? And Randy's like, yeah, I don't run the deep end cut here, buddy.
That must have been Pat. It wasn't me. That's a good story.
I think he told all the Fresno State guys that when he went there and they would call plays, maybe it was when the dirt was still there. Like, yeah, bro, I ain't running.
I do remember that he would not run on the dirt. Yeah.
But I think he specifically told them on top of that, there were some routes and it was just, but that no one even held that against him at the grand scheme of things, right? I was like, oh, it's just the Raiders. And if Devontae wanted to do what he said today, no one would even have blamed him. Like, in solidarity with his boy, but he showed up today. I feel Ayuk is cut from that same cloth, and I like that in my players. Like, there's just not much BS with them. They're not divas. They're just fucking there to play. Now, Devontae's been doing it a long time, but think about this. They're both, Devontae's from the Packers with like the highly craziness with Aaron Rodgers, and he just kind of handled it. Ayuk, who feels actually a little crazier than Devontae. Like, that moment with Fred Warner was a pretty high level. Like, I got a little crazy in me, motherfuckers, and I ain't scared of shit.
John's talking about, we've mentioned it a lot, but a practice play in which Fred clocked a guy. We were there, and Brandon came running from across the field to start a fight.
Well, he fought him twice in 3 reps.
Well, that's right. That was after there had already been. There'd been some shit talking leading up to that practice, hadn't there been?
Yeah, because Fred called him like his little brother, and he's like,
Fred had tapped him on the head or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just this guy. You remember going to OTAs and just seeing the way he carried himself? Like,
I do.
Where was Debo? Oh, there's nowhere to be found.
Well, there were.
Was that his trade request? Yeah.
When then there were times where like,
Debo ever roll that back or just pretend like that didn't happen?
What's that?
The trade request?
Yeah, I thought you don't believe that it ever happened.
Well, I don't think he ever acknowledged it or anything. He just kind of came and went.
Kind of the way to do things now. But there were times when you'd watch the receiver drills, I remember early, where Ayuk was all, whatever. People always make a lot of this, like, who's in front? Well, Ayuk was always. But he's carried himself this way for a few years. Like, he's just a very...
He was good last year.
Honestly, kind of to the point where I believe that, Shanahan's narrative on Ayuk being in the doghouse is not that he was mad that Brandon was misbehaving. It's that Brandon debuted in the NFL in the COVID year, right?
This is 3rd year, yep.
Didn't get as much practice, like just didn't quite understand because there wasn't a preseason, there was less camp or whatever the deal. I don't remember exactly. But Kyle's ultimate...
Well, there was no off-season training camp that started.
So Kyle's ultimate kind of explanation, the narrative that he puts out there, is that it wasn't that Brandon did something wrong so much as he was behind because he didn't quite understand what was required of him, but he was never a screw around guy or wasn't taking it seriously or anything. And the more Brandon's career I watched, the more I kind of believe Kyle that it wasn't about Brandon being a screw around guy.
He did mention some stuff a couple weeks ago. I wonder if the Welker and his relationship was kind of weird and rocky, and maybe Kyle sided with Welker early on, and then I think maybe he shifted to be Ayuk, and then wasn't a big Welker guy. I do think there's some more as time goes on to look into that historically. There might have been a little something.
Yeah.
About 17 Niner coaches whenever I watch a Dolphins game, and he's one of them.
And it feels like he was always leaving with whoever left first or next, I guess.
Yeah.
Like Kyle, you can stop the wide receiver coach from going. He didn't stop him.
Nope. Peace.
Devontae, 14 touchdowns now, leads the NFL, by the way. That's 2 more than Kelsey. That's 4 more than Diggs. You know who's 4th in the NFL in touchdown receptions? Scored 1 today.
What team? Give it away, huh?
Yeah. Amari.
I did see someone tweet today, like, Amari Sneaky having a massive year.
Did you see the other tweet about all the NFL.com tweets about the Browns?
No.
Every Browns touchdown highlight, there's like 3 touchdown passes today. They zoom the image in, so the quarterback is cropped out of the highlight. So you just see like the ball, maybe for a moment you'll see the throw, but the ball just like comes out of the right side of the screen because they zoom it in so you don't see Deshaun. And they don't say the quarterback's name in the tweet. Whereas like most times they always say like, Purdy to Ayuk for 60 yards or whatever.
So you think if we click on the Chiefs, it'd be like Mahomes dropping back to Kelsey?
Of course. The quarterbacks are the stars. And with them, they don't say that. They're just like, Amari goes big, and like, you don't even see the thrower. Since when do you crop the quarterback out of the highlight?
Amari's going to end his career. Is he going to have like a Hall of Fame level stat resume of just a ton of like production? And it's like, was he probably just really solid player? People are going to act like, oh, he just didn't live up to the hype. And you're going to look at his stats. You're like, well, he's fucking pretty damn good.
You have another team in him? Probably, right?
Doesn't feel like he's long for the Browns, but they're going to keep him next year because next year they're going to think they can get Deshaun Watson. I looked at one time today. Watson's stats were pretty terrible.
So he's having his 6th 1,000-yard season in 9 years in the NFL? This year. He's probably going to finish with maybe with double-digit touchdowns for the first time in his career. He's having one of the best years. I mean, he's just had a bunch of really good years.
How many total touchdowns does the guy have in 7 years?
Well, this doesn't have, what did I tell you guys today? 9. So now he's got 55.
I mean, is he going to end up with like 95 touchdowns?
He's only 28.
He's not that old, man.
28, turns 29 in June. So
I say him.
Feels like he's got a game that'll age, right? He could play another 9 years, maybe.
I would have bet against him trying in Cleveland.
Like just quiet. Might be a Shanahan guy actually one day.
Kind of feels that way.
According to Pro Football Reference, his nickname is the Route Runner. So I do want to mention McCaffrey today because this was definitely one of those games, and he's had several of them where you watch and go, yep, worth it. He was extra worth it, I thought, in this game. 19 for 121 on the ground, which is over 6 yards a carry, touchdown, 6 catches for 72 yards. He was extra special. He's been special, but this was extra special, McCaffrey.
The screenplay was one of the plays of the game, right?
What part of it? The patience?
I would say the patience. That was the Brunskill play, right? So he waits for him.
Patience was outrageous.
And then the way he finished the run just kind of set the tone like, we ain't fucking losing.
Yeah, that's right. The finish was good.
The finish was sweet. And he was so gassed they had to let Buck Mason get his first career touchdown.
How about that?
That was pretty sweet. And then
that was a really good run.
To me, it was pretty cool too when he, anytime that the star player like gets a lot of joy and the backup player kind of, especially as a running back, when the guy gets to kind of like piggyback off your work.
Right.
He's just so good in the
Price
pass.
had a good run, by the way. Was that a first down run today?
It was a little Le'Veon Bell, like patient, and then I hit it. It was sweet. And then he had the little 360 that gave him an extra couple yards. Yeah, man. Sanchez had a good point. I think Sanchez is actually pretty good.
Sanchez is awesome.
Just an easy listen, isn't it?
He's comfortable. He's comfortable. He's just himself. Very insightful.
I had buddy that worked on the Bears when he was the backup, and he's like, listen, I don't know if he's that good at football or anything. We love him in the building. Like you can just tell, like, I didn't kick it with Sanchez.
Yeah.
He's just a natural. He's very comfortable, like in his own skin, right? He's not trying to, I'm not trying to act like I'm Rome or whatever. I'm just calling the game, having a good time. I went to SC. I've been getting laid for 20 plus years. I'm 35 years old. Like,
kind of
life's
makes
pretty good.
some dorky jokes every time he's on camera, but like it's very endearing, which is fine.
But,
I got no
the one
problem.
thing he said, and I guess I agree with him. Purdy hit a seed to McCaffrey on the slant. Like they ran double slants.
Yeah. Yep.
And they took Ayuk away. And at first I'm like, do not throw it to 11 because the guy bolts in, would have picked it off. And Purdy waits that extra second, and Christian's wide open and hits his hands, and it hits the ground. And he's like, I know he's the best pass catching wide receiver in the league. And he has the most catches in the history of the league through 6 years, passes Roger Craig.
Is that what that stat was today on the screen?
Yeah, well, yeah, they said it I think they said it on the broadcast too. And Maria was like, who is the quarterback for Roger Craig? I was like, Joe Montana. So it's like, there's a lot of symmetry here, but he isn't a wide receiver, right? So it's like, can you live with that drop? Is it a tough catch? Yeah.
I think you can. I mean,
yeah,
it's just part of it. It's just whatever. I mean, I think he'll probably catch it more than he doesn't. It was a rocket.
I bet he would tell you he's pissed off he dropped that.
Yeah, I'm sure he would. You expect him to make those plays. He just makes so many plays.
He's sweet.
The screen.
Raiders defense does suck. I mean, he has not been running the ball.
But here's the point: they needed Christian McCaffrey to win the game today, and he was excellent
for sure.
So whoever you're playing. He just starts every game at 100 miles an hour, and then it just depends. If you get the ball first in the second half, he eats a whole banana at halftime, and if you defer, he eats half a banana, or is it the other way? It wasn't really clear. Does he eat half a banana if you're getting the ball first in the second half, or a whole banana? Did you catch that part of the Barrows article when he was in there at halftime?
Listen, no offense.
McCaffrey has peanut butter and jelly, and then it depends on when they're getting the ball, how much banana he eats.
So today they got the ball. I bet it was half a banana.
Because you don't need the banana to last as long.
I like doing peanut butter and jelly and put the banana in there.
That's a great move. Yeah,
that's a good sandwich.
I remember seeing Mark Sanchez at Pac-12 Media Day a few years ago, and there's always like some big time guys there, and you see him, whatever. And he was just walking around, like just kind of talking to anybody who popped up and talked to him, just cruising around, doing work, kind of prepping. I just remember thinking, like, he just looks really comfortable.
Son of a fireman, man, blue collar guy.
Son of a fireman. Yeah, I mean, played for USC and the Jets, for Rex.
Got nicknamed the Sanchez, won some playoff games.
Yep,
was a quarterback on a team that beat the Patriots at home in their
had the butt fumble, doesn't care.
Doesn't phase him at all.
Like, actually, I think laughs at it sometimes, whatever.
Well, I mean, he did. I mean, he was dating Verlander's girl for a little while.
Oh, that's right.
I mean, Sanchez lived a good life. Don't cry for Sanchez.
No one's crying for Sanchez.
Sneaky had a longer end of his career, too.
Yeah.
If you just told me, like, Sanchez and Christian
kept going longer.
Sanchez just feels like he just hangs out with the guys. Sanchez just feels like a dude. Sanchez is not gonna go away for a while on TV.
Well, I think Fox has two, I hadn't thought about it, but I just watched the game thinking, man, between him and Olsen, they've got two young guys that are really good at this. How about the ref in the Niners-Raider game looking like Greg Olsen's uncle or brother? You notice that guy?
No, I didn't.
That guy looks just like an Olsen family member, whatever his name is.
Olsens are good looking. They had great hair.
Yeah. 49ers defense today. They gave up 365 passing yards to Jarrett Stidham in his first career start. And all told, they allowed, 500?
Looks like a lot of yards. Even. Looks like a lot of yards.
500 even. A 500 burger. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, the quarterback played well. Like, all seriousness, no hating on the Raiders. The quarterback looked pretty good. It was if you're him, and they showed his wife 75 times. I mean, holy.
And her friends, who were very happy to be in the suite.
They're good-looking people, but I mean, we got a little much of them. Had a good day.
Not so much in the second half.
It was an exciting day for the young man, but yeah. Listen, my whole take on the Niners defense is you're allowed an off day throughout the season. They were pretty terrible today. It looked like, as most people were joking, did they go out last night on the strip? The Bosa, do you notice him slipping a couple times when he was trying to do moves? He tried to do like a 360 move one time and slipped. Saw him slip another time.
Probably go check the turf after his miss.
Yes. No, Robbie, that was you. And
Bosa had the play of the game at the end.
No, he did. But I'm saying early in the game, they weren't really getting pressure. It just felt like there were some openings over the middle of the field. Their corners just a split. I mean, that touchdown at the end of the first half, Ward right there. He's made that play all season long, and Devontae gets basically 3 feet in. They had some open guys.
Lenore was right there on the big Devontae play at the end of the game. I don't know,
I mean, Waller, I think they got lucky. He got targeted 5 times. You could have targeted him more. The Niners, that was a tough matchup for them, right? When you factor in his height and his speed, because their safeties don't really run. Luckily, like you look at the NFC, like it's not going to be a crazy matchup. Honestly, you could argue the Raiders match up pretty well against the Niners. I had a buddy in the league tell me he thinks Josh Jacobs, when you just watch his film when he's been on the field this year, you could make an argument he's been the best running back in the league.
Wow.
Just physicality and just how big of a load he is. He's fucking good, So they have a star running back who runs like it's Earl Campbell 1978. They have a top 2 or 3 wide receiver. And when he's on, you could argue he's the best receiver in the league. Waller, who's mailed it in since he got paid 2 years ago, felt like he's like showed up today, missing Derek. You watch his comments when Derek got benched, a little weird. Maybe like they're not buddies. That's a good tight end is just going to be a tough matchup for their safeties. They just matched up well. Now the quarterback was smooth and played well, but those guys came to play. I do think, like, if you just told me, like, you could give Waller and Devontae to the Packers, and that's the Niners 2-7, I'd be like, oh, fuck. Right?
Devontae's the last player I think the Niners would want to see on any team in the postseason.
I agree. They can't stop him. He's eviscerated them for years now. Even when his team was kind of gutless, he showed up to play.
How he got open on that first touchdown. You remember? Where Stidham rolls left. Hufanga breaks. Devontae just kind of drifts back, and then it just breaks free. He's just all alone. That's
every time I'd see them putting him in the slot, I'm like, I
especially
wouldn't
late.
have a safety on him. Like,
late,
hey guys,
they had him in the slot, and it was, I think, a linebacker standing over him.
Yeah, I would switch up the linebacker, put him out on the receiver, and get a corner on this guy.
Like Aiden Hutchinson today. Did you see that play?
Sweet pick.
They dropped 11, I think, on the play.
I look up at first, and I saw on Twitter, Justin Fields destroying the Lions, up 10-3. And then I look back up, they're down like 31-10. What the hell happened?
I don't watch any of that game.
They won like 38-10.
I mean, I think some of the things you saw today, I think there was nobody that I circled on the Niners defense and thought, oh, that guy had an uncharacteristically bad game. I thought the Raiders did the things that you're always kind of afraid could hurt the 49ers, right? Like a number 1 receiver on Lenore or Charvarius, who's had a great year. I mean, Ward's been fantastic for them. Mooney has been really good for them. The middle of the field sometimes can be a little open for the Niners based on their safeties. It's just, I don't know that anything happened today that, like, they got to figure out a way to fix it before their next game or before the postseason. I didn't feel that way. They did not get home. I thought they actually got a fair amount of. I'd have to check. I didn't think they got no pressure on Stidham. They just never landed the sack on him.
He made the one play where he avoided 2 sacks and got it out to Hollins for a first down.
Yeah,
remember that? That was a pretty sweet play. Yeah, I'm with you. Even when Lenore got beat, he is right there. I mean, there were plays last year, remember, when guys weren't even in the vicinity. I can live with a guy giving up a touchdown or a catch with him being there. It's a hard place to make.
The irony of it all is that they had, they've got Armstead and Kinlaw back together. Armstead made the big play on the 4th down, the 4th and goal where they got stuffed. Armstead made a huge play early in the game.
Yeah, he's been big.
Greenlaw. Did Greenlaw come back?
Yeah, he got the Charlie horse of all time when Fred Warner kneed him right in his thigh. Probably did not feel good.
His whole leg back too, right?
It's probably knee. Oh, I guess it was his knee. It probably hurt. The collision there. I think we underrate, like, when a guy just, hey guys, I just need like 2 minutes to just take in all this pain and lay here, and then he gets up and jogs off. Can you imagine the feel of the collision of Fred Warner running full speed, even if nothing's broken or anything? Just when you hear these guys like, I feel it the next day, imagine just waking up the next day. Like, nothing's broken. It's just the bruise of pain for everybody. I can't even imagine what offensive and defensive linemen feel like on Monday morning in the NFL. I can't even fathom.
Forget about just the little scratches to your body constantly. Oh, McCaffrey didn't bleed today, from what I could tell. So
but there were a couple plays today, like even Stidham when Bosa got him pretty cleanly and fucking destroyed him into the ground, can you imagine the pain that felt? Just getting drilled into the ground.
There were a couple plays where if it had been like Tom Brady that had taken that hit, he would have been complaining about.
What do you think about of my belief that top 10 quarterbacks should be officiated, new rules? Anyone outside of top 10-ish, I don't exactly know what 90s rules.
League puts out a list every week. Stidham like wakes up like shit. Oh, like is Stidham on the list next week?
He would be automatic. Yeah, I mean, he couldn't play his way in. If you're a rookie, can't play your way in. Even
you should get on if
you
you throw for 365 the week before.
Yeah, maybe there's a way to get out a win and 300 plus yards.
What do they do with Purdy? Is it like an independent committee? It's like, well, fellas, is Purdy on?
I'd be cool
Shanahan
with.
Makes the case.
I'd be good with rookies. You have to fight your way out. Year one, you're on it, no matter what.
I could argue it's partly dependent on who your backup is, like the drop off from you to the backup. Like how bad, if we've got you on Sunday Night Football next week, if your backup has to start for you, how bad is that for Sunday Night Football's ratings? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like by that argument, like that's the standard. Like if you are, and you'd be like, well, Purdy, major drop off, he should be we got to protect Purdy. They're on Sunday Night Football next week, you know?
And I think you could fall off. Like, Tom, you're not grandfathered in. It's on.
Tom, I think, did not get a call. Tom got flagged for spiking the football. It was a pretty weak. He was like on the ground and just kind of threw the ball straight down. Got flagged for a delay of game today. He was not happy about it.
He had some pretty sweet bombs today to Mike.
The point is that Stidham got crushed a few times today.
Crushed.
Destroyed. And I thought the Niners tackled pretty well. Jacobs had a couple runs, and at the end of the day, he was over 4 yards a carry, but I thought they tackled pretty well when it mattered.
You know what felt one guy was like, I'm tired of getting fucking shredded in the run game in the second half was Jimmy Ward, and started flying around there and making some plays in the line of scrimmage. A couple times in the second half, Jimmy Ward made some really good tackles up near the line of scrimmage. Because early on, guy, I thought they were getting gashed. Not just by Josh Jacobs, but when the backup came in, like there were just holes. You're not used to seeing like second level holes where a guy can hit the first hole and then like cut left and get. And again, this is back to Jacobs. How often do the Niners get taken for a ride with the running back?
Not often. He had that 9-yard that carry that looked like it should have been 6, ended up at like 9.
He's a beast.
That first play overtime.
Jake
on the stream says Josh Norman got torched today.
Yeah, welcome to the club, Carolina. In fairness to them, like I think Horn, the guy they drafted last year, got hurt. Like they don't want to sign him. I mean, they didn't have a choice.
What's he been doing?
Doing his little foot drills, probably at home. Remember going to practice and like Josh Norman do his little foot drills? It's like, Josh, just stretch and go play. I mean, his foot drill's not making a difference here, buddy.
Brady on the Raiders next year?
Well,
while he watches Brock Purdy live his dream.
Let's just talk about. I would say by the end of the first quarter, it was pretty clear this thing was a 49er home game. I text our buddy John Dickinson, who's there. I say, "Is this a Niner home game?" He said, "Yeah." And to me, you can always tell when 44 gets a carry, and felt like he got about 10 today, but he got a couple nice ones. And the juice chants screamed out. Did you say that you heard someone say that it's the worst home field advantage?
Jason Cole tweeted, this has to be the worst home field advantage in the NFL. Not today, just Allegiant Stadium.
Well, you would say, in general, if you just look around the league, it's the most unique, right? Because you could be like, oh, New Orleans. Yeah, but the Saints fans, when they're always going to be the majority. Because I'm just using like New Orleans, like Vegas is a destination.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
You meet a lot of people that are like, oh, go to Bourbon Street. Probably not as many. I'd argue Vegas is probably more unique than New Orleans because we're less likely to go to New Orleans in California. I would say anywhere like west of Denver. I'm not saying we won't go, but it would be a pretty massive trip. When I worked for the Eagles, you never met anyone that hadn't been to Vegas, right? I would say Vegas is a pretty universal trip. Would you agree for people like adults that are just going to make in their life?
I mean, is it at the top of the list? Because it's so easy to get there. Everybody on the group thread, there's no like, well, I don't really like X.
Would you say it's
the
above,
weather
like,
never matters because
New York City? Would you say it's above New York City?
Yeah, just because I think it's probably cheaper. Like I think what Vegas has is like we can find a $45 hotel in Vegas, which does not exist anywhere else. Motels, yes. You cannot find a $45 hotel in America.
with a ton
KOA
of,
probably charges you more than $45.
and right in the heart of everything with fun shit to do, right?
Yeah, and it's just no. I mean,
It's probably the most unique place we have in America, and that's where they put them. Which, listen, they make the right decision. Over Christmas, I flew into Oakland, and you just drive by that place, and sometimes I think it is absolute insanity that there was an NFL, a Major League Baseball team, and an NBA team,
That
and
stadium is
within a
such
year or two, they won't
shit.
have any. That place, you could blow that area up, and not a soul would notice. It is, and listen, I'm not even trying to be mean to Oakland guys. It's shitty. You all know it. We all know it. It's awful. And like, did they upgrade dramatically? I mean, no one's arguing that. But it is not an advantage for them at all, because especially when you
the
look
league,
at
it's better for the league that they're there, right?
dramatic. I mean,
And it's better for them, like in
better for
every
everybody.
way except for home field advantage.
now it's not near what the Chargers have in LA, right? But I would say for a team that kind of hung its hat on, like, we have fans, and our fans, like, you've been to Raider games at the Coliseum, they can impact the game. Today was like not even close. And it's going to be hard. Like, the Chiefs, they are lucky that Denver's going to suck for a while. The Chargers don't have a fan base. And they're just like, yeah, the Chiefs are going to beat us most times no matter what. So even if they come, whatever. But like you do, if you ever get decent and you have a home game against the Steelers, you have a home game against the Packers, you have a home game against the Cowboys, like, you're going to lose, like, in terms of the fan base. Like, it's going to be advantage them. And that's only going to get worse, I think. It is. I mean, it's bad now. Today was pretty eye-opening. I expected there to be Niner fans there. I didn't expect there to be that many Niner fans. Did you?
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't think that long about it.
The only way it gets better is if you get good for a sustained amount of time, and local fans are convinced that coming to the game is, you really become part of the community, and that takes a while. It takes a while to happen, and ticket prices have to be somewhat reasonable for people, and it's always going to be hard for those tickets. Usually if the home team is bad, the ticket prices come down, but the Raiders, it doesn't apply to them. The ticket price doesn't come down when the Raiders aren't good, because the road team brings half the fans or more.
Well, for example, like the Golden Knights, they just get to be good. They're not bringing back, it's hockey. They just get to own the area. When the A's eventually move there within the next couple years, if they're good, which typically they cycle through, and they'll be good if they move there in 2 years, that's probably right around the time, they'll be fine. They'll have a little fan base. It'll be fun. The NFL is kind of unique that most people over 10 years old in a city, if they don't root for that city's team, or if the city doesn't have a team, they got a squad, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Most people,
but
you meet a ton of people that are from random areas that are fans of other teams.
I also think just the NFL, I've talked about this for a long time. The NFL's schedule, the fact that they only play 17 games, that there's so few games, that they play on the same day every week, you can build your calendar around it, is just such an advantage for the sport, right? Like, Blackhawks fans aren't traveling in on a Tuesday.
No.
But, if you play on Monday, maybe you play a Monday home game a year, maybe you play 2. But I can just bank on it's on the weekend. And then that's it. It's just on the weekend. I can travel to all your games. Suns fans aren't going to Chicago. I want to see the Bulls. Let me check. Oh, the Suns play on Wednesday. Maybe a couple people go, but not freaking 35,000 of them.
Yeah.
So they're just at a disadvantage for that reason. They're just at a disadvantage. And whatever, there's a lot of ways in which their lives are better, but a home field advantage is just not one of them. It's just not.
Well, and I would say this. Their start moving to a new city has been weird.
Yeah.
It wasn't their fault. They weren't allowed to have anyone in the place in 2020. And looking back, that was obviously the wrong decision. Place should have been packed. But regardless of that, like, no one was there. And that set them back. And then the next year, they had a pretty weird year, right? They had a moment in the town, even though they made the playoffs. One of the players killed someone. Right, the coach got fired. Like, it was just pretty tumultuous year for the franchise. Now, they ended up making the playoffs and had an incredible final moment at the stadium. Right, it was fucking sweet. So they feels like they kind of took a step forward, but now it feels like they take 4 steps backwards. So the momentum going into a new city is kind of zilch. It's just like,
Well,
meh.
they showed up with 2 faces of the franchise and now have none, the coach and the quarterback. They showed up with John Gruden and Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Now, and they've lost. Well, maybe let's not say they have none. Let's say they've lost their 2 faces of the franchise since they arrived, for better or worse. Maybe they're better off. I don't know, but they lost them, and they lose a bunch of games.
I had some Raider fans texting me today, like, "Are we sure this kid isn't better than Carr?" It's like, well, based on today, yeah, he's probably playing better than Derek was.
Nick Mullins once looked. Did he have to do better than Nick Mullins did against the Raiders in his debut? I can't remember what his numbers were. Mullins won, right? Or did he?
Yeah, he won. Yeah, because Favre called him.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Was that Thursday Night Football?
It was Thursday Night Football, yeah. It's just very part of what makes the Niners such a big brand is they've been doing it for so long in so many different iterations. It's like the Lakers. Because I had someone tweet at me today when I was fucking around with Raider fans on the internet. Like, what's the difference last 20 years, Niners and Raiders? Like, I don't know. 5 conference championships, multiple Super Bowls in the last 12 years. You guys have 0 playoff wins. You guys made the playoffs twice. You guys are just kind of irrelevant in the internet age, where when the internet, part of being relevant in the internet age is, now you could argue maybe you could, in the 70s and 80s, there was less going on. So if you were good, you could exponentially get bigger. And some teams did, right? The Cowboys, the Steelers, I'd say the Niners in the 80s, individuals, Michael Jackson, Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali. Like, you could argue if you got super, super huge, you could actually be bigger than what you can now.
50 million people watch you on a random Sunday.
But you had to be super, super huge. Yeah. You had to be super, super huge, right?
Yep.
But I would say in the internet age, like, Peyton Manning didn't win a Super Bowl for like the first half of the internet. And it was like he was pretty big because he was always winning. He was always in sweet games. It was just always a thing, right? Like Kobe post Shaq was like, just, you can be really, you guys have just been irrelevant. And listen, the Niners in 2000s were irrelevant. They were a joke. But I'd say the last 12 years, like, they've had major, major moments. And it's helped them because they've had shitty years too. Chip Kelly, Tom Sula, 2020 when they got booted to Arizona. But their good years are like conference championship, Super Bowl. Even if you lose
superstar
Super Bowl,
coaches.
Yeah, just you pop.
Famous players.
You pop. And that's, you got to find a way to pop. And it doesn't even feel like the Raiders are close to popping. Not even close to popping. And here, you know what a problem is? The Chiefs are clearly going nowhere. I mean, if you had to bet the next 5 years, what would you put like their over-under win total? It'd be like 12.5, right? And you'd probably like, over the next 5 years average, if you told me they averaged 13.2 wins, it's believable. Like, they could have a 16-win season. They could have an 11-win season, but they'd have a lot of 12 and 13-win seasons. One thing you see with the Chargers now is, like, if their defense is just okay and they are healthy on offense,
than okay.
Well, it's been, but I'm just saying, like, how are they going to suck with that guy?
Yeah.
Like, they have a top 5 quarterback, guys. Now, their franchise, whatever, bigger nationally than low, but I'm just saying, like, for you to win, you have those 2 teams that you play 4 times. Even if the Broncos suck now for the next 3 years, which is easily possible, how do you overcome the 2 teams that are just going to be in your division that, even if you kind of, because divisionally, right, you play them tough every once in a while. Let's just say the Raiders every once in a while are going to go 2-2 in those games. Those teams, because of their quarterbacks, are just more likely to be double digits all the time.
It's not like you dominate the Broncos every year.
No. I mean, they had to beat them in overtime. Derek's last.
They do get
moment
to play at the Chargers, which is actually what everyone else gets to do when they come to Vegas.
True, but he's better than you most of the time, right? So,
yeah.
Like, my point is, even if you individually play them well, on the aggregate, they get to play all these other games where it's just like, oh, yeah, Herbert threw 5 touchdowns. Oh, yeah, Mahomes threw behind his back for game winner. Like, they're just going to win a lot of games where it's clear you just struggle to win your vacuum games. Like, you're just playing Team X, uncommon opponent. More likely than not, you're going to lose. Obviously, the Chiefs are more likely to win. And now that Herbert, like, if he just stays erect, they're going to win more games than they lose, even if Brandon Staley is their coach. They won today, right? Chargers?
They won today.
So they're 10. Are they the 5 seed right now?
Chargers are.
I guess it depends.
Chargers are the 6th seed. They're 10 and 6. Yeah, because Baltimore is 10 and 5. So if Baltimore loses, the Chargers then become the 6. I don't know what the tiebreaker is there. Yeah, if Baltimore loses and is 10-6, they have the same record, but the Chargers have a better conference record. So I think they would move ahead of Baltimore to the 5 seed. If Baltimore wins, they're 11-5, and they stay a game ahead of the Chargers.
So Baltimore's in the playoffs today, I guess, huh? Because these other teams can't get to 10
Yeah,
wins.
because New England's 8-8, Miami's 8-8.
Yeah, Chargers are in the playoffs too. Chargers made the playoffs.
Yeah, they're both. Yeah, they've Chargers have clinched a playoff spot. The only spot that isn't clinched is the South, which will be the 4 seed, and then the last spot, the 7 spot.
So the only
New England-
spots that are not clinched in the playoffs are the 2 7 seeds, right? Other than that,
Yeah,
the playoffs are
everyone
set.
is clinched in the NFC in the top 6. So Seattle, Green Bay, Detroit, all 8-8 in the NFC. New England, Miami, 8-8. Obviously, New England has the head-to-head against Miami, the tiebreaker. So Miami needs to win and have New England lose.
But back to what I was saying about the Chargers and the Raiders. Listen, the Chargers have had more success over the 20 years when the Raiders have been mainly irrelevant. But this is their best quarterback. So they always got to overcome Dean and the cheapness and usually a coach that's probably not quite good enough given their talent. But this is their most talented quarterback.
Which is enough to get you the playoffs. I mean, they may not never fulfill their destiny of being a championship team or his destiny, right?
If I told you right now after this season, Herbert does not miss a game for 5 years, what would their over-under playoff burst be during that time? Doesn't miss a game for 5 straight years.
Yeah, I'd say they
60% of the time, 3 out of 5.
Yeah, three playoff years.
Would it shock you if
because Pittsburgh, well, okay, the Jets need a quarterback. Tennessee, Cleveland, Vegas, Indy, like everyone, the AFC's got a lot of people trying to figure it out right now, right?
That's your problem.
They're only the thing that stands in the Chargers' way is they're not going to have a lot of room for error because they're going to have to probably be the wild card most years, right?
But there are 3 wild card spots.
But that's the point on the Raiders. Now, multiple teams from the same division can make a wild card, but
I mean, you look at the Raiders in a year where it turns out the 7 seed in both conferences, and maybe after we have 10 years of data, it'll prove to be that's always a pretty wide open spot. It is wide fucking open with a bunch of 8-8, 7-8 teams. Raiders ain't even close.
Yeah, last year was 9-7-1 Pittsburgh and 9-8 Philly that made it the year. But remember the AFC 2 years ago was 11-5 Indy was the 7 seed, but that was the COVID year. Maybe everyone won more. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Chicago was 8-8.
I wonder if that year is going to prove to be a throwaway year.
I think it probably will be, especially at this rate. I mean, this year, everybody's kind of, as we talked about the other day, people aren't getting blown out with any teams aren't consistently that same team. Everyone's playing in close games, all that shit. This was supposed to be the Raiders must feel vindicated discussion, but I guess that's a different discussion if you want to have that. A moral victory for the Raiders post-Carr. Mark Davis, Josh McDaniels probably hugged post-game. Mark had I'm guessing, no one's reported this, very positive conversation with Josh McDaniels afterwards. What do you think?
They talk every week, right?
Talk every week.
I mean, post-game. That's the thing.
It sure seems like it, right? That's what the word is.
Yeah. Maybe it's just because I watch the Raiders more than some of these random teams, but God, do they lose this game more than any team. I mean, they in fairness, they're in a lot of games, and this season they've been in a shitload. I mean, they blew 3 17-point leads, and I think they've blown another 2, minimum 2, maybe 3 double-digit leads. Guy, they were up 10 in the second half. Now, it was early in the third quarter, but they were up 24-14. I mean, that's not nothing. You only had a half to go. I mean, I started doing the math. I'm like, well, if Purdy were to throw a pick or whatever,
I got history for you.
You should feel pretty good about yourself up 24-14 in a second half, right?
Generally speaking, but in this game, I don't think anybody. It was early. It was more than 10 minutes left in the third quarter, right?
True.
The Raiders, Elias Sports, ESPN Stats and Info. The Raiders are the first team in NFL history to lose 5 games in a season in which they led by 10 or more points in the second half. On top of the loss to the Niners, the Raiders blew double-digit second-half leads to the Cardinals, the Chiefs, the Jags, the Rams. So we'll see what happens with Jacksonville. It may be that they've blown, of the 5 second-half 10-point leads, 3 of them to non-playoff teams.
I think
Cardinals, Chiefs, Jags.
I think
Rams,
Jacksonville's going to get in.
because it's win and get in against the Titans, who are playing awful football.
Yeah.
Next week. So
First
there
team, not a date, right? You said NFL
First
history.
team in NFL history.
Not one of those in 40 years and 30 years. In the
First
history
team
of
in
the league.
NFL history to lose 5 times when they lead by 10 points or more in the second half.
Wow. No words.
That's why you were very nervous as a Raider fan when they went up by double digits in the second half.
Well, yeah, just set them up to fail again. It's this type.
It
of
really
stuff
is
that-
like was Charlie Brown, always runs up to the football and then Lucy pulls the football.
I guess it could have been worse, right? You would say that Denver had a worse season when you factor in how much they traded, how much they paid him, one and done coach. So there's a gap. But if that's a 10 out of 10 of like, God, this is an ultimate disaster. We are fucked. Who knows? We might have to pay someone like $30 million a year to get, like, if Jim Harbaugh takes a job, but they pay him $25 million a year or whatever. There's a gap, but this is, on most years, this would have been like, oh my God. You had a franchise quarterback. It felt like, again, Cousins or Dak, but as you see with the Cowboys and the Vikings, like, they just roll for years and make the playoffs with their guy. You have that guy that felt like they're just going to make the playoffs with Derek, compete for wild cards. Even if the Chiefs win it every year, you get Josh McDaniels that about 7 teams have tried to hire. He's turned down, literally left one at the altar. He told the Niners, strung them out, turned them down. I just don't know if it could have gone that much worse. Like last year, for as shitty as it was remarkable what they accomplished, right? Fatalities, firings. I mean, it was crazy. It was, but they overcame it. And this year, it's been the opposite.
What makes it work? Because somebody might say, well, Indy was supposed to be good and they won 4 games. That's worse. They won less games. Or the Rams are the defending champs. They went 5-11 so far. Well, they got one more. They won less games. But the worst place to be if you're not going to be good is in the middle. And the Raiders at 6 wins have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're at best drafting 7th right now, which actually is not bad. But if you're going to be terrible with no hope, you'd rather be a 2-win team.
Well, I think I saw Ted Nguyen tweet the other day that someone was talking about blown draft picks or whatever, and he's like, what's crazy? Oh, he was quoting a Nick Bosa stat. He's like, if the Raiders only don't beat the Denver Broncos at the end of the season, whatever that year was, 2018, they would have had the number 2 pick and got Nick Bosa. And he's like, but who knows? Maybe they still take Cleveland Farrell. Kind of joking around, but part of like when you suck, and this is always my thing. And remember, we argued about this years ago with the tanking. If you're gonna suck, you have to suck. The greatest example is the Miami Dolphins. They tanked all season long. They did the hinky until the last month of the season, and they won 3 of their last 5 games. And you know what it cost them? Joe fucking Burrow, who looks like the modern day Joe Montana.
Yeah,
who just has the Bengals. I mean, is anyone going to be shocked if the Bengals beat the Bills tomorrow?
no.
And it's winning pointless games. Now, ultimately, if you're a Raider fan, today losing is a good thing. Winning this game would have been completely pointless. Just completely pointless.
Yeah, I mean, it would have got you to 7, and that really pushes you back probably to the edge or be outside of the top 10, depending on what happens next week.
But this notion, and this is, listen, we've talked, I guess the one podcast we did since Southwest, who do you see they're back up and running?
Southwest?
Is
you mean the airline that RG3 took home when his wife went into labor when he left the broadcast?
Did he? Is that what he took home?
Well, because they had like this other broadcast with a bunch of people on it. I think it was the one McAfee was on. And on the air, he took a phone call saying, she's going to labor, get home. So he flew home. And it was a false alarm.
There were 2 separate ones. McAfee was on the night one. I watched a little bit with AJ. It was kind of funny.
Did you see McAfee catch the ball while holding a mic on the field goal?
Probably a better athlete than people, I think, when they look at him, that they realize.
Probably. He looks like a good athlete.
Yeah. Remember that flip he did when he did the wrestling like 2 years
ago?
Yeah,
off the rope.
Yeah, he's a good athlete. But did Derek deserve to get benched this year? I have no problem with you benching a player who's playing really, really shitty at the end of the season. Like, it's football, it's sports. It happens in every sport. Guys have been benched. Great players have been benched in every fucking sport throughout the history of professions.
The Giants benched Eli Manning, who took them to greatness. Two Super Bowls.
It happens. But this notion that they're going to be able to pivot, and this is where I think Raider fans would be like, well, we've been stuck in this spot. And maybe that's true. But more than likely, I would bet my bottom dollar, you are not going to be able to find the neutral spot, let alone upgrade. And more than not, unless you're going to suck, and I don't view Josh as ever going a Sam Hinkie season, that how are you ever going to, like, they have enough talent on this roster if they're like, yeah, Devontae, you may want to leave. We're not trading you. Waller, we're not trading you. Let's just say they roll it back and they play with Stidham and they sign
we can't afford because we got a new stadium. We got to fill it up.
Yeah, let's say Tom won't come, but you give Jimmy $25 million and you just win again like 6-7 games. You're just stuck in this rudder. You have made the playoffs a couple times in the last 4 years. Like that has happened. Right in 16 and then again last year, so maybe a little longer, 6 years. For the Raiders, based on the last 2 decades, that's good. You know, I'm not trying to be even sarcastic right now. That is good. Like your franchise, this is who you are. Like most years you're 6-11, and even if you got Tom Brady, would you feel that great about them next year?
Well, it'd just be totally dependent on if that's the year that Tom.
But even like this year, like their defense stinks. I mean.
Well, he needs a better defense than the Raiders have. Like they've got to remake. That's really where we spend all the time talking quarterback, and it really matters. But they've got to fix that. That defense. Maybe they could just be the Jets, where the Jets also are not good, but at least the Jets you can kind of see what their future looks like, right? Just based on the fact that they play defense. The Jets are 7-9. That's only one game different than the Raiders. I'd say their seasons felt pretty different from the Raiders' season.
Dramatically different.
It's because you look at them and go, all right. We got the makings of like what it kind of is going to look like. That's what makes it so painful for Denver is you'd rather not have a quarterback than have Russell on that contract. Because if they didn't have a quarterback this year, if they had just played this year with, I don't even know who, Paxton Lynch, you'd be like, well, all we need is get Jimmy Garoppolo in here. Our defense is so good. We can compete to win 8. We can go win 9 games next year and be in the playoffs. We got talent on offense. But the Raiders are not. They're a quarterback and no
hope sells, guy. Hope sells.
Hope sells, and also just defense gives you a shot. Because what's easier to build? What's easier to get? A franchise quarterback or just a top 12 defense? I'd say top 12 defense.
It's easier to find Sauce Gardners and Max Crosby's than it is Derek Carr, honestly.
Yeah, that's a great point.
You know?
Here's the 49ers playoff situation, by the way. They are now 12-4, tied with Minnesota, who got their asses kicked today. For those who didn't see it, by the rolling Green Bay Packers. 1 game behind the Eagles, who somebody just DM'd me, and they're like, you guys got to talk about the Niners are on a roll with their backup quarterback. The Eagles can't win with their backup quarterback. The Eagles, was this 2 weeks in a row now? All they had to do was win to get the 1 seed, or win to get the 1 seed. Couldn't do it.
They did have a starter carted off today after he hit his head into a guy, and it was a rattling kind of moment, like, holy shit. They've had some rattling injuries. They feel a little Niner-ish a couple years ago where guys are dropping like flies, man.
You give him a break for not having Hurts, but you also wonder, well, when is he back, A, and B?
I think Schefter said today, like it's trending toward next week. He's going to play. Right.
Which is pretty crazy. I mean, it looked like they were going to be able to rest him until the second week of the postseason. So if he's got to come back and play week 18, he loses basically 3 weeks of rest and rehabilitation. I leave 2 weeks. Right.
Well, if they lose next week and the Niners win, the Niners are the number 1 seed. And I think the only question is the Giants are set at 6. They are the 6th seed. Are they going to try next week? And my logic is
ideal male body.
Well, he looks fantastic. You're not winning the Super Bowl, right? So you win 10 games and you get to the playoffs. That's an incredible season. Are they in a position?
And you're right. You beat Philly. That's a pretty signature win.
Yeah, the other thing is like, well, you can't afford to get Saquon hurt. Well, if you're him, it's like, are we sure we're re-signing him? We're not giving him $50 million. He's not under contract. Because I'd say if you had extended Saquon and given him like a $40 million guaranteed or whatever, you would probably rest him. You're not getting him hurt in a meaningless game. I think you go with the Pat Hill, Ryan Matthews, run this guy like a horse. You know, he's leaving anyway, or potentially.
I also think when you are, I think there's might be some psychology to being the 6th seed. You're going to play whatever Minnesota, right, in the first round. You think like we can win that game. Like Minnesota's kind of limping into the postseason. Let's go all out and let's play this Minnesota game hot. Like, let's be hot when we go to Minnesota, because that always seems somebody always comes in hot.
The Giants have done it before when they won Super Bowls. Now,
Yeah.
I don't think it's a Super Bowl team, but would it be shocking if
But
the
they
Giants
weren't in
won
a
a playoff
position to
game?
rest. They weren't in a position to rest everybody week.
No.
Remember, Peyton used to rest the other Manning.
As of right now, knowing what you know just about Daboll from afar, do you expect them to just approach this
I
game
think
like
it's a
losers?
gravy season, and I do not expect them to approach this game like it's a bye week.
Daniel Jones or Saquon Barkley gets hurt. Those guys are not under contract for these guys next year. Wouldn't you say part of resting a guy is, one, obviously I think I have a Super Bowl team. I'm going to win playoff games. Like if you're the Niners and you're arresting people, or the whoever. Packers obviously can't, but you know the teams that can. Chiefs, whoever, given your situation. And like I have this guy under contract. I've paid this guy a lot of money. Like Deebo Samuel. I would be very hesitant playing him in a meaningless game against the Cardinals, where they might be playing some guys who they're like, fuck it, let's bring up some practice squad guys and guys trying to make their careers. I would be hesitant to do it in that situation. Now, Kyle might say you want to get the high-speed reps for the play. It's a tough, but Deebo's under contract for a couple years, so that's part of it. Like he's
Maybe
on
more
your
carries
team.
for Buck Mason while we're at it.
Where's the Eagle game? Do you know? Do you have this?
I can tell you 1 second.
Because the Cardinals, God, they're terrible.
The Eagles, it's in Philly.
Here's the other thing for the Giants. They just got killed by the Eagles. Don't you think there's a little pride? Like, fuck these guys. Now, it's a bad matchup, but again, I'm trying to talk myself into them trying to get the 1 seed.
Yeah.
But I would not mind. Tell me Niners, Packers. I'll tell you one thing. Talk about big numbers. I'm in. Because all these games then next week, Guy, will be at 1 o'clock. Remember how the league always does it? I think all these NFC games are going to be at 1 o'clock. Beside the Packers, potentially. I guess the night game might be. It might end up being Titans-Jags because it's just a winner get in. Can't make the playoffs.
Yeah, I wonder if they could they not put, you're afraid, what would you be afraid of? You'd be afraid of Seattle losing.
Well, no, if Seattle wins, the Lions would not be able to get in even with a win. The Lions need to win and have Seattle lose. So if Seattle were to win, like what are the Lions? Like ultimately,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? If you're the NFL, you'd be afraid that Seattle lost earlier in the day?
No, you would want that because then it's a win or get in game. You would be afraid that Seattle won and then the Lions, okay, it's like the Lions lose, like they're not, or they win, they're not going to the playoffs anyway. They're just knocking the Packers out. You really want a game where independently of every other game in the league, both teams are fighting to get in, and that's really only the Jacksonville Titan game.
But also you don't, but they try to avoid putting a game at night that's affected by another game, right? Where
Yes.
one opponent knows the answer.
That's what I'm saying. The only game in the league that is pure in a vacuum, independent of everything else, win or get in, is Jacksonville Titan. But I think they'd be like, fuck it, let's just go Green Bay.
They could, but they could also just go, you know what? All right, America's game of the week is going to be Packers-Lions.
It's the NFL. Who cares? Right? You ain't going to watch the Jags?
It'll be okay.
I would say, though, of all the matchups, even just of playoff level teams, that's the worst possible grouping. Don't you think? They're like, shit.
Oh, like you'd rather have Giants-Packers?
You'd rather just have anything like Miami Jets playing to get in, just anything where it's just win or get in. That's the last combo of any teams that are competent in the NFL that you want.
You're talking about the Jags. Yeah,
I'm just talking markets. I'm talking players. It's just the Jags have good players, but they're the Jags.
Yeah, awful uniforms too. The Titans. The other problem is the Titans were just on national TV and were terrible. So everyone just saw them. Like everybody just saw them. Right?
Tough watch.
Yeah, I mean, look, Niners-Packers would be interesting, but from a Niner, if we're talking about it from the perspective of, what gives the Niners the best chance to win, there are much better options out there.
Well,
right?
It's a much easier game against the New York Giants. It just is.
Or the Seattle Seahawks.
That's the easiest game, I think.
Detroit, a little weird, just very uncommon.
You see, no team in the league has scored 30 points more than Detroit. I think it's 8.
I did not know that stat.
Now they've played, right? Minnesota's defense isn't very good. The Bears stink. So I think if you look at their schedule, now they just have offensive weapons.
Yeah, they're plus 22, which is 4th best in the NFC. The Lions. Now, the NFC has a lot of teams that aren't, the NFC playoffs right now, Philly plus 127, Niners plus 148, Dallas plus 145, okay? The 3 and 4 seeds both have negative point differentials because Minnesota got their ass kicked today. They're now minus 19. Tampa is minus 32 somehow, but they're 500. The Giants, 0 point differential, and Seattle plus 3. Like, if you are the Cowboys, and definitely if you're the 1 seed in the NFC, you will be kicking yourself if you don't make it at least to the conference championship game, if let alone the Super Bowl. Right?
Yeah. I would say it's mandated as the 1 seed, whether it's Philly or whether it's the Niners, to be in the conference championship. Anything else is a massive disappointment, right? Massive.
There's actually quite a bit of pressure that comes with these top seeds in the NFC, which is always the case. But, like, let's just say New England ends up playing Buffalo. I mean, that would suck if you're Buffalo to lose because you think you can win the championship. But, I mean, if the Chargers beat Cincinnati, let's just say that's the 3-6 game. If you're Cincy, you're like, well, I mean, yeah. All right. Baltimore's going to roll in as probably an 11-win 5 seed, maybe 12. If they win their next 2, they're a 12-win team.
They're going to win tonight, and I think their last game is against the Browns.
So either Cincinnati or Baltimore, one of those 2 teams is going to have at least 11 wins. The 5 seed is going to have at least 11 wins in the AFC. And that means the 3 seed will have 12. I mean, that's good. But so you're going to have multiple wild card teams with double-digit win. Who did the Chargers play next week?
The Chargers play the Broncos.
So you're going to have 2 11-win wild card teams in the AFC.
Yeah.
Them and either Cincinnati or Baltimore.
Yeah, I think the wild cards, assuming Lamar comes back, I don't know if you can, would be better in the AFC than Dak and Daniel Jones.
Playoffs.
Now, I'd say Aaron Rodgers throws a wrench into that.
Yeah. That's what Aaron is just scary. If they roll in, what would they be? A 4-game win streak if the Packers make it?
Yeah, they won today. They beat the Dolphins. They beat the Bears.
It'd be 5 actually.
They've won Green Bay. They've won 4 straight. It's a 5-game winning streak.
It'd be 5. And before the 5-game winning streak, they had 4 total wins.
So they were 3-8.
They were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then they won 4-6, lost 2, 4-8, which is pretty crazy when your quarterback's healthy the whole year, basically.
Really is.
Like star quarterback. Like if you told me, Aaron missed 5 games, then this is nothing. But he's played. Pretty crazy.
I got to take a leak bad. I've been holding it for about 20.
I actually do too. Can I rattle you through? We get 1 minute speed round here. Ron Rivera found out in the post-game press conference that the football team would be eliminated depending on what happened in the afternoon games.
Gonna defend him because he's just playing to win. Why is it that crazy?
Just play to win, baby. Patriots.
You agree? Is that a little overrated?
I don't think it's good, but it's not one of those like I can't believe this is inexcusable. Is it fireable? I say no, but I think it's bad. I do think it's bad. I think it's bad. Yes.
Yeah.
I do think it's bad. Because I think coaches all the time are like, we just focus on today, but then actually in their office, they know every scenario, which is really what you should, if you're the head of the whole operation, and your team is rolling out Major Tutty, you should probably just kind of, have a better feel for things.
Fair.
Patriots control their playoff destiny, John.
Play the Bills.
Tough, but would be pretty legendary to beat the Bills to get into the playoffs.
True.
And I think finally, unless you have something else to add, well, two other quick things. Kayvon Thibodeau comes free, unblocked on a sack, probably sends Nick Foles into retirement. Foles writhing in pain on the ground as Thibodeau lays beside him doing snow angels. Spoiler alert, there was no actual snow. And even looks over at Foles in pain and continued with his snow angel.
If he saw him, it's fucked up.
The Rose Bowl is on Monday. Harbaugh, I got to tell you, tweets that went unsent from the weekend, I was kicking myself. Down 14-3. I wanted to tweet. If there's one thing I know about a Jim Harbaugh team, they're going to get back in this game only to lose in heartbreaking fashion. And I didn't think I'd enjoy TCU in the championship game, but you know what? I'm pretty fired up for TCU in the championship game. Some new blood felt good.
They got back in the game multiple times. That was the thing. Multiple times. And then it extended multiple times. He got back within 5. You're like, he's going to do it. And then they would score immediately. Number 1, TCU. Beast.
Uga, Marvin Harrison Jr., superstar, incredible player. The holder, I think, I need to do some investigation. I'll look for it. If anyone hears McAfee talk about it this week, let me know. I was watching the game with our buddy and big-time Raider fan, Brian Hawkins. He thought immediately the hold on the missed kick by Ohio State to send them the championship game was either too far to the front or too far to the back. He thought it was a bad hold. If you watch it, it's the holder immediately puts his hands on his head, slumps to the ground. What was the kicker's name? Noah Slugger, huh? Whatever his name was.
Slugger, Ragler, something.
He's the
Reggie Ragland.
He's the one that has to pick up the holder. So Eagle Eye, he said it was the holder's fault. So we'll have to check on that.
Okay.
But I think I emptied the tank there. All right, everybody. Happy New Year. Have a great week. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great Monday. Enjoy the football games. Tito, send us pictures of you drinking. I'm just see how long until Middlecoff pees himself. All right. Bye, everybody.
Peace.